listening to the Video Game and Nerd Trivia Podcast with Tony D. Video Game and Nerd Trivia Podcast, your episodic dose of trivia covering all things video games and nerdy. Now, here's your host, Tony D.
Hello and welcome to a minisode of the Video Game and Nerd Trivia Podcast. On today's minisode, we're going to be going over Marvel Sidekicks. I have 10 questions for you. It's going to be a quick episode. I will be reading you the question, giving you 5 seconds of silence, and then giving you the answer. So in writing this episode, I realized that Marvel doesn't really have a lot of sidekicks. So instead of doing a 30 question episode, I could only do 10. So here we go. Question 1. This sidekick character eventually took over the role of Captain America. He's very well known for having a metal arm, and in the comics he was a younger kid, while in the movies he acts like an older brother to Steve Rogers. Who was he? This is Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. Question 2. This character has a tense and friendly relationship with Iron Man or Tony Stark, and he has his own suit of armor, but instead of red, it is actually gray, and at some point in the comics, he does become a red, white, and blue version of that armor. Who was he? This is Rhodey or Jim Rhodes or War Machine or the Iron Patriot. Take your pick. Question 3. This character, sidekick, also became Captain America at one point. When he was Captain America's sidekick, he was known to fly around and had his own sidekick named Red Wing. What was his name? This was Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon. Question 4. In the comics, Doctor Strange became the Sorcerer Supreme, and this was his sidekick. However, in the movies, it got a little bit reversed, where his sidekick became the Sorcerer Supreme, while Doctor Strange is still just plain old Doctor Strange. Who is this sidekick? This is Wong. Question 5. This sidekick character was basically a sidekick to Nick Fury. This was how he was in the comics. However, in the movies, he is the leader of the Howling Commandos, and there was no mention of Nick Fury in relation to him. In the movies, he's played by Neil McDonough. Who is this? This is Dum Dum Dugan. Question 6. This mutant character served as a sidekick to Wolverine amongst others, and her power involves fireworks. Who is this? This is Jubilee. Question 7. This sidekick character to the Daredevil is basically his law partner and shares his first name with a condition of the weather. This is Foggy Nelson. Question 8. In the comics, this character doesn't really have a big role. However, in the movies for the MCU, he was basically the sidekick character to Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man. What was this character's name? This was Ned Leeds. So the history of Ned Leeds in the comics is quite interesting. He's actually one of the people that's under the mask of the Hobgoblin. So he was actually a supervillain, not really a friend or a sidekick. They also retcon him later to say that he's not really the Hobgoblin, but he was a stand-in. So, that character has been up for a lot of different interpretations. Question 9. This sidekick character was the secretary of the Foggy and Nelson law firm. She had a very widely expanded story when they did the Marvel Netflix adaptation of Daredevil. What was her name? This is Karen Page. And question 10. This character is a mutant and sidekick to Wolverine sometimes, and her powers are phasing through things, and it's interesting in the comics, she can send herself, like her own mind, back in time. However, in the movies, she sent Wolverine's mind back in time. Who was this? This is Kitty Pryde, aka Shadowcat. So that was a quick-fire episode of 10 questions about Marvel sidekicks, and I guess one of the reasons why there aren't many Marvel sidekicks is because Stan Lee didn't like having sidekicks. It was actually, Marvel came in during the time that sidekicks were not like a thing anymore. It was more of a thing during the Golden Age, and Marvel was like at the Silver Age of comics, and it was kind of moving away from sidekicks. So that's probably why we don't see a lot of sidekicks in these Marvel comics. And if you kind of look back too, Stan Lee, he hated sidekicks so much that most sidekicks were typically just killed off in Marvel. So yeah, so that basically means I'll probably have a longer episode in the future about DC sidekicks, because that probably has a lot more. But yeah, I thank you so much again for listening, and until next time, trivia on.